tu Brute? Caesar betrayed. The opening phrase was what the famous poet William Shakespeare envisioned as Caesar's final words, as 60 of his senators brutally assassinated him. He likely didn't actually say that, as being stabbed 23 times might have made speaking fairly difficult. However, the poetry of that kind of phrase carrying all of the unbelieving betrayal of the friend of Julius Caesar adds the kind of drama that people remember throughout the centuries. Julius Caesar being murdered is one of the most well-known assassinations in the world. Although this is not necessarily because of the famous Shakespeare play as one might think, it actually has a fairly significant impact on the people of Rome and had an extremely significant role in the altering of the political situation in Rome, and not necessarily for the better. Ancient Rome, now modern-day Italy, doesn't have a clear origin. The more popular story is based around the twin demigods Romulus and Remus and encourages killing your sibling in order to name the city what you want. Another more in-depth theory actually involves around the Aeneid. Apparently, a woman named Roma, along with other travelers, made their way to the Tiber River banks where they tried to burn the ships in order to keep the men there. Aeneas ties into this legend a little more closely, as he's identified as one of the ancestors to Romulus and Remus. Now, the most likely explanation of the origin of Rome is that an ancient name for the Tiber River is Rumon, and the Etruscan settlers that began the people of Rome simply called it that, and it just developed into Rome. After the settlement of that area, it began to grow through trade, and since it was right next to a river of water and could both sustain a group of people agriculturally and draw in travelers that would travel by the water. The city was ruled by 7 kings, including Romulus, Numa Pompilius, Tullus Hostilius, Incus Marcius, Tarquinius Priscus, Servius Tullius, and Tarquinius Superbus. Greek culture heavily influenced Rome when it was first developing. They provided them with the early stencil of their soon-to-be complex and inspiring way of life. The Etruscans north of them also provided an example for industry and complexity within the culture. The amount is debated, but there is no doubt that their influence was heavy in the developing stages. The last king of Rome, Tarquinius, ended his reign in 509 BC, and from there, Lucius Junius Brutus created the Roman Republic. The city's first means of success was through trade, but its development skyrocketed with warfare. The Punic Wars especially solidified Rome's power and allowed for tremendous growth. After Carthage was taken over by Rome, it no longer was fighting to maintain control over the Mediterranean trade. Rome essentially had full control of the Mediterranean Sea, except for the happenstance that there might have been pirates. With the warfare and trade being the most definite moneymakers for the Rome citizens, that was unfortunately not lucrative for the vast majority, and it created a wealth gap that divided the people into the patricians and the plebeians, who of which only continued to grow poorer. Through war, the Roman elites acquired lots of slave labor, which put the lower class Romans out of work. They eventually turned to mercenary work, where they would do anything that rich Romans would hire them out to do, which led to mass amounts of corruption. The Gracchi brothers tried to put a stop to all the corruption, Tiberius and Gaius, but that resulted in their deaths. Fortunately, they did not die in vain, and there was some reform that took place that got rid of a large portion of the obvious corruption and led to the first triumvirate of the Roman Republic. The Roman Republic was set up as 2 consuls that were voted in by the people of Rome to serve for 1 year. Then there were the magistrates, which was the judicial system. Retired magistrates could then become the senators of Rome that discussed important government matters and provided counsel to the consuls. The first triumvirate would include Marcus Licinius Crassus, Gnaeus Pompeius Magnus, or Pompey the Great, and Gaius Julius Caesar. Crassus' power came to him because he was the wealthiest man in Rome. He would force the rich to pay him a safety fee, or else he would burn down their houses and make them pay him to send people to put out the fire. Caesar and Pompey both were generals that were highly respected because of their conquests that increased the wealth of Rome. Crassus met his demise in trying to be like Caesar and Pompey in the Battle of Carrhae, where he was killed during truce negotiations. After Crassus was out of the picture, Caesar and Pompey no longer had to pretend like they were okay sharing the power. They declared war on each other. In the Battle of Pharsalus in 48 BC, Caesar defeated Pompey, and Pompey ran away to Egypt, where he was assassinated as soon as he got there. Now that Caesar was the only leader of the 3 left, everyone decided to side with him because it was believed that the gods sided with him too. Rome was growing so much because of Caesar the green portion is the part where Caesar obtained more land for Rome. He enlarged the Senate, created government reforms, and decreased the overall debt of Rome. He sponsored the building of the Forum and rebuilt Carthage and Corinth after they were torn apart by war. He granted citizenship to foreigners overtaken by the Roman Republic, and under Caesar he created the best version of the Roman Republic. He was doing so well until his friends in the Senate feared he was becoming too powerful and that he would dismember the Senate. Especially after he declared himself a dictator, they assumed that there would be no stopping him if he gained too much power. A month after doing so, in which he referred to himself as a dictator, which was only a couple of years since he became the sole leader of Rome, his second choice as heir Brutus and a group of about 60 senators murdered him. Basically, everyone went crazy. The senators that were not involved tried to leave immediately for fear that they would be harmed as well. Fortunately for them, Brutus simply wanted to talk to everyone after he killed Caesar. The two main consuls in Rome, the senior magistrates of Rome, were not even present when all this happened. The movement of anything that happened in Rome was in the hands of assassins, for at least until the senior magistrates could decide to move their forces in and physically take control of the situation. Until then, they had gladiators march them out of the Forum so that they could try to persuade the people that this was a good thing and get their approval. It's not entirely clear what was said, and the assassins, it seems, intended to escape any kind of negative reaction or consequences to their actions. Julius was very popular with the people of Rome. They were furious, especially the lowest class, that he was killed like that. Instead of the warm welcome they expected for saving the people from a dictator, the public hated them for it. At his funeral, the people were throwing dry branches, furniture, and even personal items onto Julius' funeral pyre, which made the flames extremely dangerous and almost burned down the Forum. The assassins got away with their heinous act scot-free, all in the name of preserving Julius' image and to keep the Senate intact. This didn't help the public's opinion of the Roman government, and there were lots of riots following Julius' funeral. Mark Antony, Caesar's nephew, Gaius Octavian, and Caesar's friend Lepidus joined together to create the second triumvirate that defeated the armies of Brutus and Cassius in the Battle of Philippi. They divided Rome into two parts. Lepidus would get Hispania and Africa, and then Octavian would get the west, Mark Antony would get the east. Lepidus had virtually no power in Rome, and Octavian and Mark had all of it combined. Unfortunately, Mark would get with Cleopatra, and then that would cause a power imbalance that couldn't be ignored. The Battle of Actium, which was won by Octavian in 31 BC, would lead to the suicides of Mark Antony and Cleopatra, and Octavian would then take on the name of Augustus, which is basically exactly what happened with Caesar. The second triumvirate dissolved, and the Roman Empire emerged with Caesar Augustus to rule over all of it. Obviously, the Roman Empire is no more, and there are several reasons as to why that didn't necessarily involve the assassination of Caesar. First of all, the economic disproportions were immense. The overexpansion of it certainly didn't help in trying to maintain it. There was so much overspending, government corruption, instability in general that it was difficult to find a single emperor to lead Rome that wouldn't get assassinated or that wasn't too corrupt. With all of that, the military got progressively weaker, and that allowed the invasion of the Germanic tribes to take over Rome altogether and entirely dismantle the Latin traditions. There was already a significant shift when Christianity was becoming bigger, and Roman ways were starting to be left behind. When Emperor Romulus Augustulus was overthrown in 476 AD, that is when the empire officially ended because no other Roman emperor would rule again. It's hard to say that all of that would have been avoided had Julius Caesar remained in power for the rest of his natural life, but certainly the act of assassinating the man in charge would not help in retaining a stable transfer of power to lead to the success of Rome.